that one of the biggest problems that I've seen over the years is I think all of us try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and that doesn't work. We literally have to become somebody else.
Welcome back to Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I'm Jim.
And I'm Lynn.
Bringing you uncommon solutions for common problems. Life is an adventure. Come and walk with us today.
And today we are having a real adventure. The name of our show today, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One, is taken from the title of our guest's latest best-selling book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One. This book actually became the #1 book in self-help and personal development on Amazon.com the week after it came out. There's a very natural synergy between the techniques and goals we use in hypnotherapy and Dr. Joe Dispenza's scientific findings.
Dr. Joe is an expert on the brain, mind, and human potential. He has spent decades studying the human mind, how it works and stores information, and why it perpetuates the same behavioral patterns over and over. He draws on both scientific and universal principles to deliver practical tools and techniques that empower people truly to change from the inside out, and so change the results in their life.
We wondered if you could set things up for our listeners by telling us why you decided to write Breaking the Habit.
Well, I think when people saw What the Bleep Do We Know, and they read my first book, Evolve Your Brain, and probably a lot of different books out there that really, investigate the new science of quantum physics and neuroscience and epigenetics and neuroplasticity. I think this is a time in history where people not only want to know, but they want to know how. So the feedback that we got from a lot of our readers and subscribers were, well, we get it, but now how do we do it? How do we change our minds? So Breaking the Habit is really the companion book to Evolve, and it really is a way, first of all, to demystify the mystical concept of meditation and to use science really as the language to do that, so that people can begin to apply this, some of these principles to their life and see measurable changes. So it's a how-to book, and it hopefully gives people the tools to begin to use on a day-to-day basis.
I say, what is the central message of the book?
Well, the central message is really simple. It says that your personality creates your personal reality. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality, the present person who's listening to this show as a personality, has created the present personal reality called their life. Which means then, if you want to create a new personal reality, then on a fundamental level, you're going to have to change some thoughts that you think, some behaviors or habits that you demonstrate, and some emotions that you've memorized that's become part of your destiny. And I think that one of the biggest problems that I've seen over the years is I think all of us try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and that doesn't work. We literally have to become somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That's something we run into all the times. Clients that have, I love saying that it's memorized emotions. They play those emotions out in the same situation over and over again, even when they're self-defeating. And we help them to learn how to create a new reality in their mind. Mentioning that movie, that What the Bleep Do We Know, we saw that, and that was so great for people listening that didn't see that. If you get the opportunity, watch it. I was sitting in a dark movie theater with a little notepad scribbling notes through that whole movie. Could barely read them later, but it was really great. You mentioned in the first few chapters that to change is to be greater than your environment, greater than your body, and greater than time. And I wonder if you can explain what that means to our listeners, if that's
Sure.
not too big a question.
Let's just say that we believe that in some way our thoughts have something to do with our destiny. Let's believe that our thoughts somehow create our life. Well, if we wake up in the morning and we get out of bed on the same side and we use the toilet like we always do, and then look in the mirror to remember who we are, and then wash ourselves off in the same routine ways, and then drink coffee out of our favorite mug, the same amount with the same amount of sweetener, and we drive to work the same way, and then we do the things that we've memorized and do so well, and we see the same people that push the same emotional buttons. We could say then it's the external environment that's turning on different circuits in our brain that are causing us to think equal to everything that we know in our life, everything that's familiar to us. So it begs the question, does the environment control your thinking, or does your thinking control your environment? Well, as long as you're going to the same place and seeing the same people and doing the same things that create the same experiences, that reaffirm the same emotions, that reaffirm the same personality, then it's the external environment that's controlling how you think and feel. And as long as you're thinking equal to everything that you know, you could only create more of the same in your life. Now, the quantum model of reality is still applying, but you're observing reality from the same level of mind. And as long as you, as the quantum observer, are observing the same reality from the same circuitry in your brain, you will keep reaffirming and recreating the same life. Now, the change then is to think greater than the environment, to be greater than the circumstances in your life, be greater than the conditions in your world. And every person in history that changed the course of history, whether it was the Wright brothers or Madame Curie or William Wallace or Gandhi, they all had a vision or an idea that was greater than their present reality. And they were so infatuated and so possessed by this idea, this vision, that they began to live as if that future reality was already happening. In other words, they weren't using their senses to define reality. They were creating a reality ahead of their senses, and they understood that their senses should be the last to experience that their mind, what their mind has created. So it begs the question, can we believe in a future that we can't see or experience with our senses yet? But we've thought about enough times in our mind that our brain is literally changed to look like the event has already happened. Now, the neuroscientific model of reality says that's absolutely possible, because the privilege of being a human being is that we can make thoughts more real than anything else. And by the same means, can we emotionally embrace some future potential that already exists in the quantum field and begin to fall in love with that destiny to such an extent that the body, as the unconscious mind, begins to believe that it's in that future reality in the present moment, so much so that it begins to signal new genes in new ways, and it begins to change the body to look like the event has already happened. Now, when the brain and body are physically changed to look like the event has already happened, the brain and body are no longer a record of the past, but now, in fact, a map to the future. So to change to be greater than the environment means then that we have to be greater than everything familiar and predictable in our life, and that we have to wire that information neurologically and emotionally condition the body to be ahead of the environment, to be ahead of our time.
We all hear that change is hard to make. Why is it so hard to change? And can you explain the process of change?
Sure. Well, the process of change requires unlearning and relearning. It requires breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. It requires what we say in neuroscience, pruning synaptic connections and then sprouting new connections. It requires unmemorizing an emotion that's been existing in the body and then reconditioning the body to a new mind or to a new emotion. It requires moving from the past and beginning to live in the future. Now, the reason that it's so hard to change is that most people don't understand is that every time you have a thought, you make a chemical. You have a great thought or a joyful thought, you turn on a set of circuits in your brain that fire in a very specific sequence and pattern and combination that begins to produce a chemical in another part of the brain, begins for you to feel exactly the way you were just thinking, great or joyful. If you have a negative thought or an unhappy thought, you turn on a different set of circuits in your brain and a different sequence, pattern, or combination to produce a different level of mind that begins to signal another part of the brain to make a different blend of chemicals for you to begin to feel exactly the way you were just thinking, which is negative or unhappy. Now, the moment we begin to feel the way we think, because the brain is in constant communication with the body, we begin to think the way we feel, which makes more chemicals for us to feel the way we think and think the way we feel and feel the way we think. And this cycle of thinking and thinking for certain people goes on for 20 or 30 years. And the redundancy of that cycle over time conditions the body to memorize that emotion as well as the conscious mind. Now, once the body knows as well as the mind, we're in a habit. A habit is when the body is the mind. Now, 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old, this is a fact, is a set of memorized behaviors and emotional reactions, a set of beliefs and perceptions that literally are functioning like an automatic program behind the scenes of our awareness subconsciously. So now the person is going to try to change, but they've been thinking and feeling negative thoughts for the last 20 years. And it's become a state of being for them. And a state of being is when mind and body are working together and thoughts and feelings are aligned. So now they're going to try to think positively, but they've been feeling negatively for the last 20 years. And change requires then to get into the operating system and make those changes in the subconscious.
That's really, this is really exciting to hear you say this, because you're giving scientific reasons to our listeners for the things that we do every day. People come in with one thing that we teach people is that their subconscious can't tell the difference between what they imagine and what's real, which is really what you're talking about. They have memorized those emotions, and we also tell them that every thought is connected to an emotion, which you just explained as a chemical, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to help people to overcome negative thinking, create new thoughts, and help them to see themselves as their future self, to begin to become that reality. I don't know if you agree but to me that we seem to be saying the same thing. Do you think that's so?
Well, think of the subconscious mind as a programmable computer program. Think of it like a tape recording. And we write these automatic programs, we write these automatic tapes, and then we try to change them with our conscious mind. And trying to change them with our conscious mind would be like when the program is running, you yelling at the computer program saying stop. It doesn't change the program. Right. You have to get into the operating system in order to do that. Now, most people then, when they go about the process of change, they typically try to create a new life, a new future, create something about being thinner or wealthier or more in love or whatever it is. But they never look at their old self. Now, the word meditation literally means to become familiar with. So if you begin to become familiar with those unconscious thoughts that have been happening behind the scenes of your awareness and bring them to conscious awareness, you begin to notice your habits and behaviors, and you begin to become conscious of them, and you begin to become familiar with those emotions that bring you to a lower denominator. The moment you become conscious of those unconscious or subconscious states, what you're really saying is, I'm not going to let these thoughts, behaviors, or emotions slip by my awareness to cause me to return back to the old self. Now, the process of change requires becoming so familiar with the old self that you would never go unconscious again. Now we can rewrite the program because we just cleared the program. Now we just eliminated the program, and we can say, what thoughts do you want to think? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate? And what emotions do you want to live by? And if you said, let the thought that you're thinking become the experience, then from a neuroscientific and biological standpoint, we can change the brain and body literally by thought alone, so that now the person gets up as a new state of being.
That's so exciting. It's remarkable when you see how quickly people could change when they do that.